Welcome to Creative Thinkers. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and today we have a very special guest. But aside from that, we are going to have me and my guest are going to be speaking in a little bit of English and a little bit of Spanish, just so everybody understands what's going on. Also, we're still recording here from our homes because of the pandemic. So I wanted to welcome Davinia Miraval, who is an art instructor / professor in higher education. She teaches all over the place. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself. Davinia, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Miguel. It's very nice to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. So you've done a lot of things in your life. You've traveled a lot. You teach all over the place. So we want to get to know a little bit about you. Where are you from originally? Are you an El Pasoan?
No, I am from Mexico City. I'm Chilanguita.
Wow.
Yeah, I moved to the United States in 1988, and we arrived in Texas, and that's how I ended up here.
In good old El Paso, right?
Good old El Paso.
Very cool. So when you were growing up, because in 88, I'm assuming that you are a very, very young lady. Did you study in high school here in El Paso? Did you study in Mexico? Up to what level did you get here in El Paso or in
Um,
Mexico?
okay, I moved to the United States in 98.
90.
So 98. So I had already done my studies in Mexico City. I had my bachelor's degree in graphic communication. That is kind of like graphic design and advertising.
Okay.
The funny thing about it is that, all the graphic design that we did was by hand. We never used a computer, like just, and now it's so, like I cannot do any graphic design if I don't know the programs, right? So when I came to the United States, I took 2 years. And then when we moved to El Paso, I decided to go back to school. But the United States didn't really like my degree. So I had to start all over again. And
Really?
yeah, like I tried to transfer something and they just took 6 hours of 96. So,
Wow.
I started all over again. But that was a good thing because, I really never saw myself fully as a graphic designer. Um, I just went into graphic design because there was one moment that my sister told me that what I was going to eat, that if I was going to eat paint, right? And I was like, okay, so maybe I should look for the more commercial part of the arts and make some money. But in Mexico, that works. Here, thank God, it's a little bit more open. You can grow based on your creativity. And I really appreciate that from the United States. Um, so when I had to start school all over the place, all over again, um, I actually started looking for other venues, not just graphic design. I started like that, and then like on my second semester, I just changed route. I was like
What?
to jewelry. I went for metals. When I figure out, like that existed in the arts, I went like, oh my God, I am from here. This is where I belong. And so I started in doing metalsmithing and painting. And
Oh, so you did a dual major?
yeah. Hmm.
Very cool. So I know that a lot of the focus of your work is more metalsmithing. Can
Yes.
you explain to the audience what metalsmithing is? Because I think that most people think that metalsmithing can be making the structure of a building, but that's not what metalsmithing is it? What is it more specifically?
Yeah, not at all. Metalsmithing is working with a lot of different metals, precious metals, or like regular like aluminum, steel, and things like that. But you're working on a very small scale, and you can do from jewelry. That is mostly what I do. But you can also do objects. You can do um, like tea sets, mirrors, the decoration in the back of a mirror.
Right.
So as long as it is, it's kind of a sculpture,
Mm-hmm.
very, very small, and tending to go more with precious metals. We do gold and platinum and silver and all of those, something that you will never do in sculpture. Uh, and it's you work in with different techniques. You still solder and do casting. So it's very related to sculpture, but in a small scale, more precious metals, and specifically in my case, it's more to adorn the body than to make an object of art. So I'm making the body my canvas. The body, it's where I want to work with.
And how did you fall in love with metalsmithing, aside from your sister saying, "What are you going to eat? Paint? You can't survive off of paint, but you can't survive off of eating metal either." So
Yeah.
what was the connection for you?
Well, my mom worked all his life as a cleaning lady.
Hmm.
And she didn't have the money to have me in daycare or anything like that. So she will take me to all her little jobs here and there with her. And in order to keep me quiet, she will put me under the kitchen table with a bunch of paper and a bunch of color pencils.
Uh-huh.
So that's basically how everything started. Like I just found how attractive color was for me, and and I could draw for hours and hours and hours, no end. And I guess she saw that I had some artistic inclination, and she sent me to some music classes and some art classes. um, so from there, um, I lived in a very, very small neighborhood in Mexico City that it's super traditional and part um, of the history of Mexico City. And the house of Frida Kahlo was like
Oh,
3 blocks
really?
away from mine.
Really?
Yeah. So, my cousins and I used to, before Frida Kahlo was super famous and the museum started charging, we used to go and play inside her house, just look,
Wow.
look at things and, play in the yard and do hide and seek. And, it was a creepy house. So, that kind of started founding, my art liking, you know.
Creativity, of course, right?
Yeah, it just started building everything. And then, like, when I found out metalsmithing, I went like, hey, with this I can actually express, because I'm not a marvelous drawer. I mean, my drawings are horrible, right? But like I'm really good at 3D. So I thought, I could really express everything that I have seen, how I grew up, my Mexican culture in a
Hmm.
more like solid way, like paper, it was like too flimsy. I needed something strong to show that. And, metal just fell into my hands and I went like, oh yeah. And especially because you think that metal is so strong,
Hmm.
right? But at the same time, it's very, very delicate. You can melt it in a second. You can break it if you're not careful. So, it's like this strength of metal and how delicate it's at the same time, and how it can be brought into a lot of different forms. It, it just said with I have seen and what I have experienced before. So my work actually takes a lot of that color that I saw in Frida's house, and with all my coloring for hours and hours, it just sets perfectly with a more neutral metal. It's just I find it a very nice marriage combination.
I think it's really exciting the way that you express all the things that you've gone through in your life. You're talking about living 3 blocks away from Frida Kahlo's house. So when you're living there and experiencing all of this, and I'm going to transition a little bit into Spanish here because I want people to get the concept of being engulfed with this culture. So I'm going to ask you a question in Spanish. Cuando tú estabas en México, ¿qué fue lo que tú te llevaste del país de México y lo trajiste acá a los Estados Unidos contigo? ¿Fue más tu cultura? ¿Fue tu educación? ¿Fue tu creatividad? ¿Fue un poco de todo? Explícanos.
Pues sí, yo creo que fue un poco de todo. Sobre todo, lo que yo uso más en mi trabajo son los colores muy vividos. No,
que es algo muy mexicano, ¿no?
sí, sí.
Exacto.
Pues, la casa de Frida se conoce como la casa azul y es un azul muy fuerte, así como que,
Lo alto, ¿no?
sí, veme, aquí estoy. Entonces,
Con otras palabras, ¿verdad?
sí, tú no te lo pierdes, o sea, ahí está. Entonces, yo creo que me traje mucho ese color en el centro de mi vecindario. Las casas son coloniales y están pintadas así igual de un amarillo vivo, vivo, vivo. Entonces, yo creo que me traje mucho, mucho del color mexicano. Es con lo que me gusta trabajar.
Y cuando trabajas con eso, ¿qué es lo que tú sientes acerca de lo emocional? ¿Es algo muy conectado contigo?
Sí, más o menos. Bueno, sí, sí, definitivamente. Me gusta mucho trabajar con los temas feministas y pues igual es por cómo vengo de México, donde pues el machismo es bastante más fuerte. Digo, es algo muy interesante porque yo creo que la Ciudad de México es mucho más abierta que la Ciudad del Paso. En la Ciudad del Paso somos bastante más conservadores que en la Ciudad de México, sí. Entonces, como que el haber crecido más o menos en ese ambiente de machismo, de que las mujeres no entienden muchas cosas, eso no es para ti, ese tipo de cosas. Venir aquí, que primero estuve 2 años en Dallas y eso sí fue eye-opening. Entonces, así como que dije, aquí sí me puedo expresar, aquí sí puedo decir lo que yo pienso. Entonces empecé a moverme por ahí. Entonces sí, va más en ese sentimiento. El trabajo que yo hago es basado en experiencias que yo he tenido antes, en cómo se me ha tratado a mí por ser mujer, las relaciones con el novio, el marido, los amigos. Entonces, me gusta investigar ese tipo de cosas, las relaciones entre seres humanos, pero especialmente en cómo afecta a la mujer en sí.
¿Y cuáles son los mensajes que tratas de que el público vea? Por ejemplo, yo tengo a 2 hijas, yo soy papá soltero y para mí el enfoque es bastante fuerte para yo tratar de darles a mis hijas esa fuerza, ¿verdad? Ese poder hacer lo que ellas quieran, al contrario de que alguien les diga, tú no puedes hacer esto. ¿Es algo que tú tratas de reflejar a través de tu trabajo?
Sí, mira, estaba platicando con un amigo en una ocasión. Él es, él es como 20 años más grande que yo. Él nació aquí, es blanco, es completamente americano. Su cultura es de Estados Unidos. Entonces estaba platicando con él pues, de la vida, básicamente. Y entonces cuando le conté algo que me sucedió en la oficina, cuando estaba yo trabajando en México, me dijo, ay, es que no es posible, eso no puede suceder. Así como que, no. Y así como que me dice, pero ha de ser, es que es México. Digo, no, eso pasa aquí también. O sea, a cada rato. Entonces, así como que él sentía que por estar en América, por cómo es la cultura diferente, hay un mejor trato para las mujeres, siendo que es pues, más o menos igual. Realmente no hay mucha diferencia. Entonces, eso es lo que yo trato de hacer con mi trabajo. En cierta forma, educar a las personas de que vean la diferencia, de cómo es de que esto me está pasando a mí como mujer y si movemos la misma experiencia en el lado de un hombre, es completamente diferente. Entonces, como que siento que uno está tan acostumbrado a este tipo de sociedad que no ves que eso no está al nivel o que no es tan justo como debería de ser. Entonces, eso es lo que yo quiero exponer con mi trabajo. Oye, esto nos pasa a nosotros y esto es lo que les pasa a ustedes. Vean, hay que ver la diferencia, así como que abrirle los ojos a esa diferencia que realmente mucha gente no quiere ver. Entonces, pues trato de educar en cierta forma el cómo está pasando las situaciones. Am,
Se me hace que lo más interesante de lo que estabas platicando en este momento, aparte de tus obras de arte, que me imagino que están preciosas, y sí las he visto en varias ocasiones y con mucho, mucho detalle, es el aspecto de la educación, que es algo que tú realmente haces. ¿Nos puedes explicar un poquito sobre cuál es tu afinidad a la educación y por qué ahorita tú estás dando clases?
bueno, pues sí, como dijo mi hermana, no puedo nada más vivir de comer pintura. Entonces, cuando me gradué de la universidad con mi maestría, la universidad me ofreció trabajo. Entonces, sí, inmediatamente me dijeron, y más vale que te gradúes porque si no vas a estar enseñando sin pago.
Y tú no te vas de aquí, ¿verdad?
¿Mande?
Tú no te vas de aquí.
Sí, ajá. Entonces, pues ya me agarraron, me dieron trabajo. Después busqué en otras instituciones de universidad y pues conseguí trabajo ahí también. Entonces, pues eso es lo que mantiene mi trabajo artístico en cierta forma. Pero también es muy importante para mí la educación porque especialmente, por ejemplo, en el norte de México y pues eso como que se pasa al sur de los Estados Unidos, que es donde estamos. La gente piensa que el arte no es importante.
Exacto, es muy
El
cierto.
arte sí, no sirve para nada, pues es nada más ahí para decorar mi sala. Entonces, o sea, yo siento que yo necesito inculcar a los muchachos en este tiempo, ahorita que están jóvenes, en decirles, oye, mira, yo sé que toda tu vida te han dicho que el arte no importa y que estás tomando mi clase porque es arte y es una ECA, pero pues no, el arte es bien importante. Entonces, yo los empujo a que vean el arte que tienen alrededor de ellos. Todo lo que está alrededor de nosotros es arte. O
Definitivamente.
sea, dime tú cómo podríamos vivir sin un diseño interesante y estético de una televisión. ¿Cómo
Sí,
íbamos a ver Netflix en una cosa horrible?
es algo curioso que acabas de mencionar porque es exactamente la razón por la cual yo empecé este programa de Creative Thinkers. Vamos a regresar al inglés por un momento porque para mí fue algo muy fuerte aprender y entender que hay mucha gente que piensa que no son creativos y se me hace para mí que la creatividad es parte de lo que uno necesita, por ejemplo, como oxígeno. Para mí es como oxígeno la habilidad de poder crear cosas. Entonces yo en la clase trato de enfocarme en eso y para mí también es muy importante dar las clases para que tengan el conocimiento los estudiantes de lo que es arte, porque sí, en realidad es parte de todo lo que vemos a todas horas, desde que abrimos los ojos. Abre uno los ojos, ve hacia el cielo cuando estás en tu recámara y ves el color del cielo de tu cuarto, de tu recámara. Y a mí se me hace que sí falta la educación. ¿Qué es lo que tú les explicas a los estudiantes, aparte de que es muy importante el arte? ¿Cómo los haces que entiendan?
Well, the first thing that we do in class is learn the elements and principles. It's like the language of art, because they said that, like they just look at something and it's abstract and then they don't know what it means.
Right.
They don't understand it. They couldn't care less about it and they just move on. Right.
Right.
So I teach them that first, this is the language of art. This is how you talk to the art, how you communicate. The art is made to communicate. That's the thing. Okay. Art doesn't have to be beautiful. Art can be horrible and scary and bothersome and obscene sometimes, but it's because it's trying to communicate. It's trying to tell you something. Now, how do you communicate, right? If you talk with a person that you just met, right? What do you do? You just say, "Oh, very nice to meet you," and you just look at the person forever and go like, and don't talk anymore and go like, and then you just walk away.
Not a good way to be. Go on.
Like that doesn't work, right? You have to ask the person, "Hey, what's your name? What do you do? Where do you live?" Things, right? So the same thing you have to ask an artwork, right? Like, why is this here? Like in a landscape, how's the weather? Why is the weather like that? Why is the person there? Why it's the, it's the position is like this? Why the person has that expression? You have to ask questions to that artwork so the artwork can respond to you. You cannot just look at it. Again, imagine that the artwork is a person. You cannot just look at it and say, "Oh, I like it. It's pretty." I mean, imagine how awkward it will be with a person. "Oh, you're pretty," and then you walk away. That's
impossible.
That's not communication, and that's not what art is for. It's to tell you a story, to create a narrative, to show you something, to teach you something. So you have to be engaging with that artwork to get all of this. If you just look at it, nothing is going to happen. If you interact with it, if you start asking questions, the artwork will respond. And so, like more or less, they will start like getting it.
Absolutely. And I think that once they get it, I think it becomes part of them for the rest of their lives, which I think, once again, art is very, very important. So you've done your art. You're currently teaching. What do you have coming in the future? If you can very quickly answer that question, because we run out of time very soon.
Well, I have a couple of little projects right now. I'm working on building the whole situation for the EPCC art show. It's for the students, and I'm making a web page. I'm engaging the students through Instagram and Facebook. We're going to be putting posters soon for the so the students know where to log in, where to register, where to submit their work, so they can win some prizes, right?
Nice.
So Yeah, and I'm working with a couple, well, 4 artists that are going to come and share their knowledge. They're doing workshops, they're doing lectures, artist lectures. They're going to be during the show. This time, usually the art show tends to be just for the art students. This time, I'm trying to include absolutely every single student from EPCC.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I bet that right now, because of COVID-19, more people are pulling out their creative juices. So it will be amazing to see, those kind of works. What have you been doing with during the pandemic, and how it's lifting your heart, and how it's art, like helping you cope and be happy during this horrible times, right? So I'm, definitely calling to all the students at EPCC to participate in the show. And the other little project that I have coming is the faculty show for UTEP. It's going to be next year. So I'm grabbing all the female professors at UTEP to make a representation of our breasts. So it's going to be collaborate artwork that it's going to end up in an installation, and all of this is going to be done with textile techniques of textile. So yeah, that sounds really cool. We're just starting, trying to put everything together, but that's the base of my next big project.
Awesome. So you're always constantly working on stuff. You mentioned getting connected through EPCC. How can people get a hold of you in case they want to commission some work? Are you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook?
I'm really, really bad for social media myself.
Maybe a phone number then? I don't know. Whatever you want to throw out there.
Well, right now I have a teeny tiny little store online for my jewelry. And that one you can visit. If I could remember the...
I think it's on Etsy, right?
No, it's actually, it runs in its own
address.
Domain, yeah.
Domain name address. Very good.
Yeah.
So we'll get all that information and we'll put it at the bottom of the screen for people to get a hold of you. I wanted to thank you very much for being part of the show. I know that it's very short time, even though it looks like half an hour is a long time, but it's very, very short. So I hope that you had a good time. I wanted to thank you for being part of the show, and I hope that at some other point you can come back.
Oh yeah, of course. It will be really nice to be back.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I want to thank all of our audience, viewing audience, for tuning in to Creative Thinkers. Again, we bring new people on all of the time. We talk to them a little bit about who they are, how they work, and what they present to our viewing audience. So I welcome everybody to come back next time. Thank you very much, Davinia.
Thank you, Miguel. It's a pleasure.